Welcome to the Nerd Review. This is the show where we talk about movies, TV shows, video games, books, and comic books. Today you're listening to episode 17, and we're on the second holiday-themed episode of the year. This is 3 days before Christmas, and it is a winter wonderland outside. We're about to brace for another winter storm in this area, and it's about to throw, more snow, rain, ice, everything that winter can throw at us is about to come, and we're bracing for a potentially turbulent holiday season. So we have a long weekend ahead of us, so let's get a good episode in. So we're talking about Krampus, 2015. It's a holiday horror comedy. If you had a big Venn diagram of those three genres, this movie is pop right in the middle, and it's a pretty good movie. It has a great cast, good direction. They went more animatronic, more practical over VFX, so it's a movie playing for my heart, that's for sure. And they have really good execution in this movie, and I quite thoroughly enjoyed it. So let's jump into Krampus 2015. Now, for anyone who isn't aware of what Krampus, the idea of this Krampus figure is, let's do a bit of a history check here. So there's, as far back as Santa goes, there's the idea of the shadow of Santa, the dark Santa, Santa's evil brother, and that's Krampus. The accepted idea is that it's Krampus. It's a folklore idea. It goes back, dates back to the 1800s. There's not a conclusive evidence that goes one way or another. Some people say it dates back pre-Christian. Some people say it's part of, pagan initiation rituals. There's still to this day festivals that are held in Austria and southern Germany. They have this Krampus run where people dress up as Krampus and they go around trying to scare children, which sounds kind of funny as a holiday tradition, but no more different than Halloween, maybe just at a different time in the year, maybe a few months later. So that's sort of interesting, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the whole, if you're bad, you get coal, and in this idea, it is that it's not Santa that gives you the coal if you're bad, it's Krampus. Krampus comes down your chimney, or in this case, in this movie, busts down your chimney, and he gives you coal. So that's the idea of Krampus. Now they've taken that idea and they've run with it, and it makes sense. Krampus is he's in the public domain. So there's a lot of different movies that are claiming, they put their title Krampus, and there's, Krampus 1, 2, 3, and all these other sequels. Krampus Returns, I believe, is one of the movies that's coming out this year in 2022, but completely not affiliated with Krampus 2015, and not the same cast or directors. So let's jump into, so that's enough of the recap, or the history, I should say, of Krampus, if you're unfamiliar with this mythical creature, this evil Santa that comes for the naughty children. So let's jump into Krampus 2015, the movie. So it's directed by Michael Dotri. He's a great director. This one, I've seen half of the movies that he's directed. He also directed Trick or Treat and Godzilla King of Monsters. He's also a very good writer and screenplay writer. He wrote the story for Godzilla vs. Kong, Godzilla vs. King of the Monsters. He wrote X-Men 2. He wrote the screenplays for Trick or Treat. He's also working on Hellraiser 2. Not Hellraiser 2, Hellraiser 2. He's working on the movie that came out in the 70s. No, he's working on Hellraiser, the TV show also. That was a TOO, not a TW. So he's working on some pretty big properties, and he's gone on to have a very good career, and I have enjoyed this movie and the other movies that I've seen from him. So yeah, great director, and a really good cast too. That is something that really sets out a movie apart when there are so many of the same movie, so many different Krampuses. How do you pick? Well, having a good director and having a cast this well put together makes a huge difference. So it's starring Adam Scott, Toni Collette from she's from Hereditary. That was a great psychological horror movie. MJ Anthony, he's great in the movie. Allison Tolman and David Kushner are playing the aunt and uncle, the in-laws of the movie, along with Conchetta Ferrell. She's absolutely amazing. Berta from Two and a Half Men, freaking hilarious. She has lines that are, just absolutely funny from the get-go. She walks into a room and she's like, it looks like Martha Stewart threw up in here. Stuff like that. Just amazing one-liners, and her presence is always hilarious. And when you, if you're a fan of Two and a Half Men, if you're a fan of her comedy, when you give her the authority to start, swearing and dropping F-bombs and being pretty hilarious in that regard. She's tipping up her flask when things get a bit hairy. Those kind of comedic moments like that. It's pretty funny. And the whole cast really bring up the comedy. They're all playing their parts, and at the beginning of the movie, it's very family comedy. David Kushner is playing the same character that Randy Quaid did in the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and he did it amazingly. I felt that there was a lot of in the writing, there's a lot of elements. You could feel the inspiration coming from movies such as the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation and Home Alone 1 and 2, in this in-laws coming to town, and there's some fighting between the cousins, and you have the more to-do family with the lesser off family, and there's some disparities and some quite funny moments when you put all these people in the same house, and that's evident in my opinion, very evident in the way that the movie sets up, and the movie opens. Well, let's get to the plot of the movie at this point. So the movie opens, it begins with beginning to look a lot like Christmas is playing is a narrative over as the camera pans across this shopping mall that looks like a cross between a Costco and a Home Depot. There's lots of orange banners everywhere, and it's like a Black Friday sale or something, and everyone is nuts. It's like the mall scene from Jingle All the Way, but way worse. Everyone is pushing and shoving. There's this one lady just like hitting a guy in the face with a skateboard, and then it cuts to like two security guards tasering people. They're on the people are on the floor like spasming, and the two security guards are just like gleaning with giant smiles like idiots. And it does a really amazing job of setting the stage for this like comedy holiday horror, and it was quite hilarious. And so as it pans to like the family, so that's like the big opening, and then it pans to the family that it's Adam Scott and Toni Collette. They're the parents, their mom and dad, and you have MJ Anthony, he's the son, and you have the sister Beth, played by Stephanie Owen. And they're at so this is where I got the Home Alone impression from. Home Alone 2 also. They're at like a Christmas recital, and Max, that's the character that MJ Anthony plays, he's getting into fisticuffs with another kid, and they're all rushing and trying to break up the fight, and it's all, you can't hear what they're saying, you can just see them reacting at this point, this place in the movie, if you will. The song, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, is still playing as the narrative of this point, the narration, if you will. And so they take him back to the house, and they're having him explain. And this is the part for me that felt a lot like Home Alone 2. They're a bit mad at Max, or in Home Alone 2 they're mad at Kevin, and in this case it's Max, and he's kind of getting his reasoning behind it. And in both cases, I agree with Max / Kevin. In Home Alone 2, Kevin, especially in Home Alone 2, like nobody's mad at Butch Buck, whatever the heck his name was, and in this movie they're a bit more reasonable. They kind of side with Max, the guy that the older guy that he got in fight with, the bully from 6th grade, was telling all the first graders that Santa doesn't exist and he's trying to ruin their Christmas, and that upset Max, and he decided to take it into his own hands. And they kind of let it slide. It's not the end of the world, but their in-laws are on their way, so they still have to prepare. They have to prepare for the in-laws. And that's where the movie really gets going. So the in-laws arrive, and like the whole house is shaking up. The whole house starts shaking because they've arrived in such a big truck that it makes the house shake. Which again, if I'm not mistaken, the exact same thing happens in National Lampoons when Eddie shows up. Randy Quaid's character Eddie shows up in his RV, and it's very similar to that. And then the whole dinner scene is like I said, it's very. You could see where the inspiration comes from if you did a side-by-side comparison. I think it's very similar to National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, but that's not a bad thing in my opinion. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. Things inspire us, and directors, they saw these movies and they grew up with these movies, and then they like to interpret them and use that inspiration in their own movies. And I think that's a good thing to achieve for people to be able to see that, right? To be able to translate that, your inspiration, into your movie, and then for somebody like myself to be watching it and to have that takeaway, but to not be blatantly ripping off a movie, to use its elements in a way that pays homage, I think is a form of talent in a way too. It's a form of it shows a mark of a good director in that sense, and that's all over this movie. It's amazing in that sense, and the director really took the time to understand the movie and Krampus and to do a little bit of history on that. In he wrote the movie too. He's one of the writers, part of the writing team, and they included the Omi, the grandmother, Krista Stadler. She's German, and she speaks German in the film, and that kind of touches back upon the fact that the movie has its roots in Germany and German folklore and Austrian folklore with the Krampus story and stuff. So I think that it shows that it's a mark of a good director, and having done a little bit of research on your theme in that sense, and that's something that's was well done. And now, so the plot, so the family comes over. It's the in-laws. They're having their dinner, and it's getting up to the lead up to Christmas, and the cousins don't get along very well. There's a big argument and a fight, and it leads to the cousins, Howie and Jordan, played by two young actors who I'm not sure if they're still into acting. Maverick Flack and Queenie Samuel. They don't have much on their IMDb pages. They were very good in this movie, though. I hope they're still out there putting their mark on the world. They steal Max's letter to Santa, and they're teasing him for still believing in Santa, and this causes a bit of an argument, a bit of a fight. And Max just he states that he just wants Christmas to be like it was before, and he doesn't understand why nobody cares, and he gets a bit upset. He runs up to his room, and it's in this moment that he decides that he doesn't believe in Santa anymore, and he rips up his letter to Santa and he throws it out the window. And you see the pieces of the letter kind of get picked up on the wind, and they float up into the sky towards the moon, and this big black cloud starts to form over the house, and dun dun dun. And that's kind of the cue that something bad has happened, but it's still a slow burn. The movie kind of descends from there. There's a blizzard, and they lose power, and it's not exactly stated what's happening. There's a few other people, like this DHL delivery guy shows up, and they have a bunch of packages on their front lard. That almost came out front lawn/yard. Lard. Their front steps, actually. It was neither of those. And they unwittingly bring in this big Santa package of gifts, but it's actually a bag of evil gifts from Krampus, but we don't know that yet. And so they let their daughter, they let Beth go to her boyfriend's house because nobody has cell reception, and it's a blizzard, and she's a teenager, and she wants to see her boyfriend, and I don't know why I'm talking like that. So she goes, and unfortunately she's the first to to meet her demise. She walks down the street, and that's when you realize that things aren't as they seem. It's deserted. The snow is piling up way faster than it should, and there's some damage. The windows are broken, and she sees a creature, and it has big horns, and it's quite large, and she hides under a truck, and then she screams, and pretty sure she dies. So Beth does not make it very far in the movie, maybe the 20-minute mark, unfortunately, and that's where the movie really ramps up, because now, Beth is missing, and they got to go find her, and it unravels from there. Like, they realize that, like, there's something wrong. The neighbors are missing. There's all this damage. There's abandoned cars, and they seem to be the only ones around. And as Max points out at one point, there's like a snowman in the yard, but nobody built it. Like, who built the snowman? It wasn't there last night, and it's an evil snowman. We'll get to that. So the story continues now. They all come into the house. So Adam and, well, not Adam, Tom, the Adam Scott's character, Tom, and David, his brother-in-law, Howard, they decide to go out and look for Beth. And upon doing so, that's when they realize that things are wrong. They're the only ones around, and they get attacked. Something attacks Howard in the snow, and his leg's all bit up now, and they bring him back to the house, and they decide to bunker down, board up the windows. Howard is a big gun nut. He brought guns with him to Tom's chagrin. When he pulls out the guns, he's like, "You brought guns to Christmas?" Though, Tom, it turned out to be a good thing, because you needed those guns. You fight off hell and all these sorts of demonic creatures who are about to dial this party up a bit. So they bunker down, and Omi, tells them to, not let the fire die. And then as they're all like dealing with what's going on, Beth is still missing, and they can't find anybody, and it's getting precarious now. We're in a situation. They decide to board up the windows, sit by the fireplace, and wait for sunlight, and they'll do something the next day. And unfortunately, while they all nod off and fall asleep, Howie Jr. he gets caught by the Krampus. This chain comes down the chimney, and it's a very well done scene. There's, like I said, lots of practical effects, and the VFX that they did use were freaking phenomenal. I have to go out of my way to mention that. I will talk about the company and the people behind those VFX when we get through the plot part here. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but just to say, phenomenal. And so this chain comes down the chimney, and it's only Howard Jr. that hears it. He wakes up, and in the middle of the chain, like wrapped in the chain, is a gingerbread cookie. And I don't want to be mean to Howie Jr., but he kind of deserved to get taken, because he walks up to it and he just like grabs the gingerbread cookie and bites into it, and when he bites off its head, it kind of like starts giggling and screaming at him, and then like grabs the chain and wraps it around him, and then he gets pulled up the chimney. And this leads to a really good scene where it's Toni Colletta that wakes up. She's the mom of Max and Beth, and she Sarah, her character's name is Sarah. She screams, and she like lunges into the fireplace, which is, remember, the fire went out, so that's what allowed them to come down the chimney. But I assume there's residual heat. There's embers of a fire there, so like that could be hot. You could burn yourself. And she's thrown caution to the wind. Her nephew-in-law is in danger. She grabs his leg, and they're being pulled up the chimney, and everybody's grabbing legs and trying to pull them back down. And she's the only one that sees this demonic gingerbread man that's attacking her nephew-in-law, that's attacking little Howie Jr., whose name I mixed up, actually. So Howie Jr. is played by Maverick Flack. The two I'm getting all tongue-tied. The two girl cousins was Queenie Samuel and Lolo Owen, who, again, I'm still not sure if any of these children are still in acting, or I would assume they're almost young adults at this point, but I mean, some of them don't even have photos on IMDb, so there wasn't much I could back check on those ones. So Howie Jr., Maverick Flack, so he gets taken up the chimney And now they're all distraught and they don't know what's going on. And Sarah, Toni Colletta, she saw this creepy ass gingerbread man demon, and I mean the design was amazing. Think gingerbread man from Shrek, but now think like evil Stay Puft Marshmallow Mans from Ghostbusters, like the mini ones from the most recent Ghostbuster movie, but like just like terrifying. Like they're evil, they have little like sharp teeth and whatnot, and they're trying to kill you, right? So like it's pretty terrifying. And so she's shook, right? Like she saw this, she's shook. Her husband, Adam Scott Tom, he's like, what did you see? And right at this moment, that's when Omi decides to, drop the beans and explain what's happening. She knows what's happening. There's not, I think they were all convinced like terrorists, like something, there was an attack overnight or something, like who could be doing this? Who are the bad apples that are coming after their family? And then Omi drops the beans that, back in Germany there was a dark Christmas, and she's been through this before, that when she was a kid she also wished that her family would disappear, and she lost the spirit of Christmas, and that night she was visited by Krampus. And it's a really great portion of the film. It's maybe 2-3 minutes, and it's animated very similar to like a Coraline animation. So I really enjoyed that, kind of using shadows and lights and darks to tell the story of what was happening. And as she explains it, she was the only one left behind as a reminder of what happens when you forget about the spirit of Christmas, that Krampus comes to punish, not to praise. And so she was left, and she was given as the only gift that she's given is a Krampus bell, this little like worn bell that has Krampus etched into the side of the bell. And while nobody really believes her, one of their kids was just pulled up the chimney, and Sarah did see the little evil gingerbread man, so she's a little bit more inclined to believe the story of Krampus. And this is when it goes from like, okay, we dialed it up from 1 to 3, and then 3 to maybe 6, and from here it just goes to like balls to the wall, like it's the demons and they're coming for us. Like it really escalates from this point into the film. Like we're maybe like 45 minutes left, and now they're facing the climax. So at this point now, like I said, the movie really escalates. They hear noises in the attic, and they go up. So the sister, she had gone up to the attic. Linda, the sister's name is Linda, and she's played by Allison Tolman. And she wanted to rewrap some of the gifts in, all the tussle and everything that happened when Howie Jr. was being taken up the chimney. Some of the gifts got a little dinged up and damaged, so she wanted to rewrap them. So she brings all the gifts upstairs into the attic. She's just, one of her kids was taken, one of her sister's kids is missing. She's just trying to cope, and she wants to rewrap the gifts. It's a very nice idea. So she gets called away from the gifts for a few minutes. They need to regroup, and the gifts start like shaking and moving, and that's when you realize that these are the gifts that were brought in from the front steps, the Krampus gifts. And the Krampus gifts are all fucking possessed and super messed up. And so like the Krampus gifts are actually, I'll get into the Weta Workshop stuff now. So Weta Workshops is the company behind the VFX, and I mean it's like a direct quote from the CEO, the co-founder of the company. He's in one of the interviews in the behind the scenes for the movies, that Krampus is an 80s classic monster movies. In his words, it's why they get out of bed in the morning, and what they love about the industry. They built all the main monsters. There's a clown in this Jack in the Box. It's this giant clown, a teddy bear, like a demonic teddy bear with all these evil teeth. This weird cherub baby doll sized thing with these like 2-foot wingspan in each direction, so like 4 feet from tip to tip, with all these teeth and mucus and wings, and like the evil gingerbread men, which the gingerbread men were more VFX, but even that, just amazing VFX. There's the elves, like degenerated falling apart. I don't know what word you would use there. Decrepit. That's the word I'm looking for. I need like an automatic thesaurus that I could be looking up while I'm doing this. They look decrepit, and according to the director, who was also in this behind the scenes moment here, he was in a movie, so behind the scenes documentary. He says, his idea is that the elves are, they abandoned Santa, or for whatever reason they disagreed with Santa, and they're banished from the North Pole, and so that they take up their masks, these ghoulish child masks of dolls and figures and stuff, and then they serve Krampus for the rest of time, which is an interesting part of the mythos that the director comes up with. And they built all of these. They made all the masks, they made all the costumes, they made freaking Krampus. The entire giant patchwork of a suit is all real materials that they sewed together. The entire rig weighed up to 70 pounds and was completely sensory deprivating for the actor inside. So Krampus, he was played by the character in the rig. The actor is Luke Hawker, and he was saying, you're sweating and you're panting and your muscles are aching because you're holding up this 70-pound rig, and you're thinking about throwing up and passing out just to get through the scene. And then the director is like, that was amazing, great take. And he says, it's all worth it. It was all worth the effort that he put in. And I mean, that is hard work. You're holding up a 70-pound costume that you can't even see out of. He had a screen inside. That's like what he was looking at, is a small screen that allows him to see outside of his costume. And how hot it must be in there, and to act, to do everything that you've rehearsed and everything that they've said, and to control the inside of this giant suit is a remarkable talent and feat of strength also, apparently, because I don't think I would be able to hold up a 70-pound rig for extended shots, 45 minutes, however long they had him wearing this. It takes a long time to get into, and then to compose yourself, and I mean, that's a lot of hard work, and it definitely translated into the movie. The cherub, the cherub thing, the cherub angel, whatever you want to call it, just the head alone had 8 servos and was controlled at times by up to 6 puppeteers, controlling the head, the wings, the arms. They, in the behind the scenes documentary that I watched, they gave a lot of credit to Toni Collette for how well she worked with the animatronics department, and how much she put up with in the cherub scene. When they go back into the attic, the part that I was talking about, she gets jumped on. This cherub thing is sitting up on the rafters, and it unfurls its wings, and it screeches, and it jumps into her face. And that was achieved by attaching the puppet to a boom pole and lowering it down on top of her, and then the puppeteers moving its face and its arms and its wingspan. And apparently she got a lot of feathers and a lot of slime in her mouth, because the feathers and the slime were also practical effects. And she had to put up with quite a bit during those scenes. But that scene, that entire portion of the movie, translated so goddamn phenomenally. It is let's talk about the clown Jack in the Box. It has to be almost 6 feet long, and it starts at a medium-sized box, and then this weird like hula hoop skirt thing coming out like a tube, like a cat tube, like what your cats would play in, but giant, and then culminating in the torso of this giant grotesque beast with like weird little baby hand gloves and this like Victorian style mask that is broken, like its jaw separates, and it just has huge teeth, and its whole jaw like it distends like a snake, like over a foot wide kind of thing. And they come up into the attic and they point their flashlights at it, and it's just like swallowing the legs of one of the children, one of the Linda's kids, and they're all screaming and they're like, shoot it, and that's when they get attacked by Teddy and the freaking cherub. And there's a robot that was really cool. They were explaining that the robot was 3D printed and then turned into a puppet, which is really cool. It's a blending of like new and old technologies, and the puppet was still puppeteered and people controlled it. And getting to see that in the behind the scenes is so cool, because I mean, they're literally, their hands are right there holding it, and they're just wearing, a green suit or a black suit, and then they're removed in post effects. And it's amazing what they can do with literally, there was the scene you're watching has 3 actors in it and all these weird creatures, and some of them, in that clown thing, there's actually a person in that rig, and then controlling all these puppets, there's like 5 other people in the room, or 6 people just for that cherub, and you don't see any of them in the final film. That's absolutely amazing. It's mind-boggling. And while all of that's happening in the attic, there's some more action happening downstairs in the kitchen. So downstairs, there was left was Omi and Aunt Meredith and the children, and the injured brother-in-law Howard. He has the leg injury from earlier in the movie, and he's trying to defend the rest of the family. He's armed with his shotgun, and he goes off into the kitchen to investigate the noises that he hears, and he's attacked by the gingerbread gang. It's 3 gingerbread men. They shoot him in the back of the leg with a nail gun, and this is my gripe. This is where the movie loses a star for inaccurate use of a nail gun. So if you're not familiar with a nail gun, nail guns are designed that you can only depress the trigger, you can only fire a nail when there's muzzle contact. So the tip of the nail gun has to be pushed against an object to allow you to pull the trigger and fire a nail. So they didn't set that up. They did set up the use of the nail gun, so it's not just like a, hey, where did the gingerbread men get a nail gun? They did do a good job. Tom and Howard, Adam Scott and David Kushner, they used the nail gun earlier in the movie to board up the windows, and when they realized that they're under attack and all of that. So they did use the nail gun, and then they put them all in the kitchen because they collected all their weapons and stuff. Now they need to be on the offensive, and so they did set up the nail gun. They set it up being in the kitchen, all of that. It made sense, except you can't use it as a projectile weapon. So the gingerbread men holding the gun up and pulling the trigger is just, it's inaccurate depiction of a nail gun. And anybody that's familiar with nail guns is gonna say the same thing. So you lost a star there. And unless the gingerbread men were using some sort of evil gingerbread magic, which maybe they were, we can give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they were using some magic, but unfortunately, alas, I'm going to take a star. I'm going to give them an A- on their movie for that. It wasn't as factual as it could have been. But David takes a licking and keeps on ticking. He takes some nails to the back of the leg, and he dives for cover and grabs a cutting board and manages to block a few nail shots that would have come directly to his head. And then he blasts those pesky gingerbread men away. And funnily enough, the gingerbread man, who have a super minor role in the movie, they have like a stringed together sentences and words and griping, are freaking voiced by Seth Green and Justin Roiland, like 2 huge amazing voice actors with such minor roles. I mean, even in 2015, Seth Green has been on Family Guy for years, and Justin Roiland's been doing Rick and Morty for I think at least around 2015. He was getting quite popular. Maybe this is what he did right before he popped. He was doing the voice of gingerbread men that get blown away by a shotgun in this holiday comedy horror movie. It was pretty funny. So this culminates after all of this happens. This culminates. They get attacked by Krampus's elves. We get to see the elves on screen. We get to see some Krampus. At this point, we've only kind of seen the shape of Krampus. We've seen his hooves. these amazing articulated hooves that have all been handcrafted props that give them control of the knuckle and allow them to move the foot joints in the hooves. Just phenomenal work from the VFX team from Weta Workshop. I mean, if you look up Weta Workshop and some of the movies they've worked on recently, was like Avatar 2, Wakanda Forever, the Cocaine Bear movie that's coming out with Ray Liotta. I mean, yeah, if you're not familiar with it, they're doing a Cocaine Bear. I totally suggest you look that up. But yeah, Weta Workshops went above and beyond in creating these creatures, and it really shows that this is a creature movie, classic 80s style creature monster movie, and the people that were involved with it were super passionate about their craft and creating these monsters. And that's something that even the actors in their interviews and their behind the scenes, they all credit the ferocity and the how scary and terrifying these props were that allowed them to give such amazing performances that they're praised for themselves. I think it was Alison Tomlin that was saying that, you know, if she didn't have this grotesque creature in front of her, she's pretty certain that she wouldn't have been able to give such a believable performance of being terrified the entire time, because in her words, she was actually terrified of this thing. It was grotesque, and it was easily freaking her out, and she just tapped into that and allowed it to play into her performance. And that's amazing. It goes with what other actors have said, and I've heard them say, like, the trick of acting is acting as least as possible. So if you can actually be terrified, just be terrified. And they were able to do that in this movie. They were able to terrify their actors, and Michael Dotri and Weta Workshop, they actually hid the props. They hid the props from the actors as long as possible, so that when they unveiled them, they would have a level of being taken aback and oh my god, that's so creepy. And they did such a good job on the monsters that was the effect of anyone that was shown them. Even myself, if you put that thing in my house and turned it on, like holy shit, I'd need a new pair of underwear, that's for sure. So with a fresh pair of underwear after that confrontation, no, I'm kidding. So after that confrontation in the attic and in the kitchen, they regroup in the living room. The time of the movie, you got maybe 15 minutes left. Reft. This is what a lot of my words get joined into one word. That was supposed to be left and time remaining, and it became reft. So there's maybe 15 minutes left / remaining. And it's really picked up the pace at this point. Things are happening pretty fast. We're almost through the thick of it. And so the elves attack. They come crashing through the door. But it's not. They don't even come crashing through the door. They come crashing through the bay window in the living room. And it's almost as if they're coming to like save this like clown Jack in the Box thing. They didn't. The family had been fighting back quite extensively. They had the shotgun and this big handgun that were both provided by the brother-in-law. Howard. He had all of his guns in his pickup truck. And so it was as if the elves, the elves of Krampus, they were worried about this weird demonic creature. So they come to its rescue and they whisk him away. And the elves managed to grab the baby, which was Howard and Linda, the in-laws. Their youngest baby was an infant, little toddler. They grab the baby and it's all gooey and whining and whatnot. and it's at that point that the brother-in-law Howard, he's like, I've had enough with this fairy tale mumbo jumbo horse shit, and he pushes past some of the elves and he jumps on the back of that Jack in the Box creature. But just as they're about to be like whisked out the window, the elves were like hooking up chains to everything, kind of like how Howie Jr. was taking out the chimney, and it pulls them all out the window. Howard goes with them, the baby goes with them, the Jack in the Box goes with them, and it's just Linda, her sister Sarah, and Tom, and Omi, and Max. Those are the 5 people left in the house. So they've gone through about half the family, and most of Linda's family is gone now. Her kids got eaten by the the Jack in the Box. Well, one of her daughters got eaten by the Jack in the Box. One of her kids got sucked up the chimney. One of her kids got stolen by the elves. So she's understandably freaking out. And the movie, through the last 15 minutes, they try to make a break for it out the door. They don't know what else to do. And Omi stays behind because they hear on the roof, they hear the hooves, and they think that Krampus is coming, and they know that they can't face Krampus. So they run out the front door, and Omi closes it behind them and stays inside. And she tells Max to like stay positive, like be strong. And she faces Krampus, and for the first time, we finally, in the literally the last 10 minutes of the movie, you get to see Krampus. They teased him out, and they did a really good job teasing him out. You saw the horns, you saw his hooves, and now he's coming through the chimney, busts through the wall, like the bricks are falling, the whole wall is busting inward, and he crawls out slowly, and you have very similar to Santa. You have this big red hood that's all tattered and stained and dark, and there's the trim that used to be white, and it's all stained and muddied colored, and this grotesque face with these bug-like eyes, these orange and black bud-like eyes, and this big tongue. And these hands, these long fingers that are at least 12 inches each, and he comes into the room, and he's just this presence, and it's all practical effects. Those hands they showed in the documentary, it's a giant attachment that the actor is wearing, and he can control the fingers, and they all are articulating, and he can bend the knuckle joints, and he can put his finger on Omi's cheek as she's crying, and very, very Terminator 2, like when the Terminator touches John's cheek and he's like, I know now why you cry. It was very like that scene, instead that Krampus just didn't care, and he kind of, I think he relished in the tear, and that he was bringing fear, and that this is what he did, this is what his calling was. He came because he was called, and he opens the bag of toys, and you see Omi look into it slowly, and a bunch of like demonic monster toys jump out at her, and you hear her scream, and then as they're running to so their plan, the survivors in the family, their plan was to go out and get to this snow truck that had been abandoned, that Tom and Howard had seen when they had gone out originally looking for Beth. It was one of the abandoned trucks. They said it was their best bet. That was a mouthful. It was their best bet because it had a plow, and if they were able to get it to start, they could at least clear the snow, and they would be able to get out of town. And that was their idea. But there was that whatever it was under the snow that had attacked Howard that they were all worried about. And one by one, it starts picking them off. Tom is able to use the shotgun a bit and slow it down, but he tells the rest of the family to run on ahead, and he sacrifices himself. So he goes down, and they manage to reach to the truck, and they get both of the kids in the truck, Sarah and Linda. They get their kids, their remaining kids, Max and I think it was Stevie or Jordan. I don't remember which one of the twins was left. They're sitting in the cab of the truck, and both Linda and Sarah, they get pulled down into the snow by whatever this creature is, and unfortunately they can't get the truck started, and all the elves show up, and they take Stevie away, or Jordan, I can't remember which one it was, and now it's just Max, and he's all alone, and it's dark, and then you hear the footsteps, and as he turns, you see Krampus walking towards him, and he kind of looks at him, and he blinks, and his tongue is there, and he drops something in the snow. It looks like a wrapped gift, and as Max picks it up, it's wrapped in the wrapping is the pieces of his letter to Santa that he ripped up and threw out the window, and in it is the Krampus bell that his Omi was left, and you hear her saying how she was left as a reminder to what happens when people forget about the spirit of Christmas. and it kind of like zooms out, and I'm just like, shit, man, like they did. So that was it. Like the whole family gets taken, like basically to hell. Like his whole family gets taken by Krampus, and he's the last one left. There's like a reminder, like this is like your fault. You did this, you know, like as a freaking moral lesson, as a terrible moral lesson. You wished for, you know, bad things at Christmas, and you got bad things. And the movie doesn't end there. No, the movie doesn't end there. So he runs into the direction of, you know, he hears all this commotion, and we get to see this amazing production. They built this sled that had to fit Krampus. So it was like, it looked like it was 6 feet high. It had to be 12 feet long, huge. And he has these demonic like reindeer. They have like skull heads, like they're reindeer, but they're almost like as big as bears, and their heads are skulls with like giant antlers or like horns kind of things. Amazing production value. The whole sled looked like it was carved from wood. Absolutely amazing. And Max takes his wish back. He tries to take it all back, and he tries to, you know, tell them to take him and not his cousin. You know, he's sorry. He wants it all back. And there's a moment where Krampus is looking at him, and it's silent, and this giant portal to hell opens up in the middle. You don't know if that's them being banished back to hell. You know, he took it all back, or what it's going to be. And then Krampus and all of his elves and all of his demonic creatures, they kind of laugh. They just, ha, 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 ha. You know, there's this big chuckle, and he turns his hand to his minions, and they throw his cousin into the fire. And he's like, what? I told you to take me. I was sorry. And then Krampus grabs him, and laughing, he holds him over the pit to hell, and he drops him. And it's dramatic, and he's falling, and bam, he wakes up in his bed. Because this is where I say it comes back to this homage to 80s style horror movies. You have the practical effects, you have all of this attention to detail, and in this last sequence, he wakes up, he goes downstairs, and his whole family is there, and there's this kind of like glow, this like white, they've kind of like dialed up the contrast kind of thing on the scene, and everybody's happy, and it's Christmas music, and Beth is there, and they're all, you know, all is good and all is well. And he's like, oh, I had this terrible dream. It's like, oh, well, it's just a dream. Everything's good now. And they sit there, and they're handing out gifts, and everybody's, you know, having a good time. And they hand Max a gift, and he opens this box, and it's kind of like a leatherish, like a Warren box. And he opens it, and he picks up the Krampus bell. And as he holds it and touches it, you hear this kind of like narration voiceover of like a few of his key lines from the movie and everything that's happened. And then his face, like, it just kind of like drops. Like he's like, oh. And then everybody else, you see their face, and you hear all these lines of the movie, like basically like one or two lines from every character. And the way I interpreted that is that they're all getting their memories back, as if they're waking up from a dream. They're waking up in a dream from a dream, remembering what just happened, and that it did happen, and that actually happened. And as they do that, it kind of fades out, and you see their house, and it's in a snow globe, and Krampus's hand is around it, and he's putting it down on a shelf, and it's starting to look a lot like Christmas plays as it fades out into the background. And I think the way I interpreted that is that this is hell. The hell that for Krampus, like Krampus's version of hell, is you're trapped in your house on that terrible Christmas day that made you wish for whatever it was, your family to disappear, you wanted to be alone, you want whatever it was, that's what you're stuck in. And Max would have been left alone. He would have been left to live on Earth, you know, regretting this being the reason for his family to be gone. But because he ran up to Krampus and was like, take me, Krampus was like, okay, sure, and threw him down that pit. And that's where he woke up. In this, he trapped the whole family in this like perfect rendition of their house in a snow globe forever to live out that horrible Christmas day that they were experiencing. And I thought that was totally Nightmare on Elm Street style, where you think they beat Freddy and everything's gonna go well, and then his hand comes out of your chest, or he, you know, kills your mom and like rips her back into the house. Very Nightmare on Elm Street. They did a really good job in the homage. So the story was amazing. amazing, and the VFX were next level. Honestly, if more movies do practical effects like this, I hope it's something that the studios take away. That, you know, a movie with a relatively small scale production, they made 4 times their budget, on their theatrical release, and a lot of that is to do with the practical effects. These creatures came to life in this movie, and they did such a phenomenal job creating every single different character, the designs, the masks, the noises they made, the way that they're puppeteered. Everything that went into creating the different creatures that they had. I mean, just the Jack in the Box, if we talk about that one, there was multiple different iterations, and if you watch the behind the scenes video, you see that, like, there's a person in this, they call them rigs, and it's this giant suit that's made out of, like, metal hoops, like a hula hoop skirt almost idea. I think I referenced it akin to, like, those tubes that your cats would run down if you've ever had a cat or you've ever seen one of those cat tubes. But now make that like 6 feet in diameter, and put a person at one end of it, and at the other end it tapers down into a Jack in the Box style item, like a caterpillar coming out of this, like a giant grotesque creature coming out of this, and at the other end it has this gross face with this top hat, and there's drool and slime, and all that slime and all that gross and all of it, it's real, it's practical, it's tangible. It was there on set. You could interact with it. There was a person inside it moving their arms, and there was, it's just, it really goes and extends it to something that will stand the test of time, because you watch that movie in 10 years and 15 years, and those creatures are going to be as real as they were the moment they were filmed, and they won't diminish over time. Even, Avatar 2 just came out, and they just pushed the envelope ahead on what we can achieve with motion capture and what we can achieve with computer effects and that side of VFX. But I don't think we'll get to that point, or we're not at that point yet, where they will, go above and beyond with these practical effects are like on film. And it's just it's amazing. It goes to why the movie was received so well and why it made such a big budget. I mean, you look at the you look at Rotten Tomatoes, and they have like a 61% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and movies like this tend to get lower recognition. They get hammered by critics. They have higher audience scores, lower critic scores, but this is not the case. This is pretty much above board. You get 5 out of, you get your 6 out of 10, your 60% on your Rotten Tomatoes, and most of that is from critics and audiences alike. And even the cast in their interviews, they enjoyed the practical effects. I mentioned the actress that played Linda. She credits her own performance with how well the prosthetics, the practical effects, and prosthetics, I guess, to a certain point, how well they were designed, which is funny. In one of the interviews with David Kushner, while talking about the movie, 100% he says Krampus instead of Krampus, which I find that funny. He was like, and we're getting attacked by Krampus, and I went back and I turned subtitles on even too, and the subtitles picked it up as Klampus instead of Krampus. That was just something funny. You watch all these interviews and stuff, and there's some interesting takes, some interesting views from the actors and what they brought to the table and what they brought away from the table. And in a practical movie like this, what a lot of them had to say was that it does really lend something to the film and to the final cut when you have something tangible to act with and to interact with, and it lends something to their performance because they're not performing against nothing. And that's something that I've said before, even in the Scooby-Doo movie, when this idea of a CGI character was so new, and then to go almost 15 years into the future from Scooby-Doo and to completely reverse it, and instead of having a Krampus that was completely CG and have your actors acting and reacting to nothing and just a prop or a marker to get their eyes to look in the right direction, to go and out and actually build this entire elaborate set and these props and these costumes is remarkable, and it says something about dedication and understanding of a genre, especially in horror. I think practical effects really take you all the way into the end zone and help help your movie be successful when you have that level of practicality. And when you're dealing with guns and visceral and you want to shock and scare people, I think go all the way back to The Thing, and practical effects like that, they always look better, and they will stand the test of time. And that's what I'll say about this movie. It will stand the test of time. It might not go down as a classic or one of the greatest movies ever, but it will stand the test of time, and it will be as good as it was in 2015 and as good as it is in 2022. And it'll just be a really solid horror comedy holiday movie. And that's where I'm going to wrap my review on the Krampus 2015 movie and episode 17 of the Nerd Review. So I hope you liked today's episode. I hope you are getting ready for the holidays in whatever shape or form that is for you. For me, it's spending time with my family and making a huge dinner with turkey and all the different sides and all the fixins and lots of cranberry sauce and cranberry jelly and lots of desserts and good memories and good times and holiday movies. And it's just about being with family and sharing a few good days and having and doing the things that we did last year and the things that we did when we were a kid, and just enjoying those family traditions that we've done year after year. That's what this time of year is for me. It's about watching movies and having a good time. So I hope that's what you're all looking forward to. I hope you travel safe and be responsible, and all those cliche things people say around the years, around the holiday and this time of year, because it is true, and we want to be safe and we want to have a good holiday season for everybody. So that's this episode. That's the holiday season. I am working on the season finale of season 1 of the Nerd Review. Episode 18 will be the season finale of season 1, and I'm going to take a little break before coming back for season 2, and we're going to have a whole list of new content and new shows and new episodes to go over in the new year. So let's look forward to that, and let's look forward to a holiday season where we're visited by Santa and not Krampus. Let's hope we don't get visited by Krampus. So that's it for me. That's it for this episode. Happy holidays and Happy New Year to everyone. This is the Nerd signing off.